Hello, this is Arlen Kilpatrick, the Erudite Chinophile, and welcome back to my series on Miletski's book, Understanding Bestiality and Zoophilia. Today's video is going to be relatively short, but that's alright, because the next video is going to have lots of data in it. Specifically, this video is going to be about the current sexual behaviors of the zoophiles studied in Miletski's book, not involving zoophilia, but just general knowledge about their sexual behaviors. So, first things first, when it came to their sexual fantasies, big surprise, lots of men and lots of women fantasized about sex with animals. There were a lot of people who fantasized about themselves with a woman or seeing other people with animals or that sort of thing. But overall, beyond the sex with animals part, it's pretty typical. And the women were about the same. They often fantasized about sex with animals. Otherwise, for the most part, they had heterosexual fantasies or fantasies of others with animals. And they occasionally had other fantasies too, but not in such quantities that it's remarkable, really. Now, when it came to what sexual activities these people have done, well, the dependent variable was, have they had sex with animals, and all of them have, obviously. But beyond that, most of them have done the ordinary stuff, using porn, sex with women, oral sex on the human female, all sorts of stuff. And basically, what that says to me is that besides the sex with animals, their sex lives are relatively normal, at least in the sense that lots of them have the usual sexual experiences in addition to their bestial ones. When it came to how much they enjoyed these activities, however, well, big surprise, they really enjoyed sex with animals, for the most part. They also enjoyed intercourse with women using bestiality porn, that sort of thing. But you can see from the data here that, for the most part, they did not actually participate in some of the seedier activities, like raping somebody or having sex with a child. And for the most part, even when they didn't really enjoy it to the extent that they enjoyed the other more ethically reasonable activities. The women share a similar pattern. They all had sex with animals, but they had also done things which are relatively normal for most people. So, besides sex with animals, there's not that much difference. And when it comes to what activities they enjoyed, well, besides the one woman who enjoyed watching a live animal sex show, and she was the only one who saw one, they pretty much enjoyed, number one, sex with animals, and number two, ordinary sexual behaviors with human beings. Now, when it came to the number and frequency of their sexual partners of the past year, I didn't graph that data because basically there's no way of doing it without misrepresenting it somehow. But basically, overall, on average, men and women, for the most part, had sexual partners for the past year, one or two, on average. And those who have had such sexual partners average about once a week having sex with these people, or engaging in sexual activities with them. I'm not sure whether it always came down to sex. Now, when it came to homosexual partners, the women didn't have any, and the men, most of them didn't have any, but some of them did. On average, among those who did, one of them in the past year. And their frequency of homosexual sex was much rarer, something along the lines of once a month. This study also asked for the men and women to rate themselves on the Kinsey scale, from 0 to 6. 0 being exclusively heterosexual, 6 being exclusively homosexual, and the numbers in between representing places along a spectrum between homosexuality and heterosexuality. And most of them were, for the most part, heterosexual, though there was the occasional person who was somewhat homosexual. More so than among the men, anyway, than the general population. Women had the same experience, mostly heterosexual, some homosexuality involved, but not a whole lot. Now, when it came to their sexual attitudes and philosophy, both men and women were found to, well, I don't know whether they actually did have these philosophies because they weren't really asked in more detail about them. But essentially, they claimed to have more liberal views, for the most part, on politics, religion, and especially sex, than the general population. I don't know how true that is, since I have no questions about their feelings on welfare, for example, or their... Well, I know about their religious backgrounds, but not really their current religious views. So, there's not much I can say as to whether or not that's true, but it's there nonetheless. The participants were then asked about their sexual philosophy, and the major sexual philosophy, as categorized by Miss Miletski, was what she calls ethical hedonism. And ethical hedonism can be described as the philosophy that you should do what feels good, so long as there are no ethical problems with it. For example, making sure that the other party consents to it, and making sure that they enjoy themselves too, and all that good stuff. Both men and women, by far, preferred this philosophy to other ones, although there was the occasional person who thought it was based on love or consent, or just plain hedonism without the ethical considerations. But, yeah, doing what feels good makes sense to me, so long as, again, there are no ethical issues. So, that's it for this video. Next time I'll go into the participants' sexual history with animals. So that should be interesting. This is the Erudite Kinophile signing off.